Namaste children, welcome to our next class. In last class you learned about the luminous and non-luminous objects, how light is important for the formation of a shadow and how the size of the shadows changes you learned. Now little more things you are going to learn about the size of the shadows in today's class too. How the shadow looks bigger and how it looks smaller, what is needed for this, you're going to learn in today's class. You can see the shadows in the figure, how these shadows are appearing, and how the very long shadows are formed. You can understand by seeing this picture. And to know more about this, we can do one activity. For that, you need a torch, 1 meter ruler, a toy car, white screen, content book, workbook, and your notebook. So, these things you take and use the torch and toy car use as object and try to make the shadow of the toy car on the screen and change the distance between the light and the screen and observe the size of the shadow, how it appears, and note down your observations and find the difference between the light and the object and between the screen and the object with the help of a scale. And when it is very close to the screen, how the shadow appears. When it is far from the screen and near to the light, how the shadow appears. You find out and note your observations in a notebook. So, to understand more about this, watch this video.
Shadow forms on the screen. Shadow is smaller when car is closer to screen. Farther away,
So, when the object is very near to the screen, the shadow is very small. You can see here.
when car is closer to screen. Farther away, it gets bigger.
When it is far away from the screen, when the object is far away from the screen and very close to the light source, then the shadow appears very big.
Shadow size changes as screen moves away.
Okay, so when the object is very clear near to the screen, the shadow is very small. When the object is far away from the screen, then we can see a very big shadows. How did you make the shadow of the toy car bigger and smaller? By moving near to the screen and away from the screen. When it is near to the screen, it is small shadow. When it is far away from the screen, big shadows appear. When the toy car was moved towards the screen, its shadow becomes smaller. When it was moved towards the source of light, the shadow became bigger. The shadow also got bigger when we moved the torch towards the car on the screen away from the car. So, when the light source is near to the object, then the shadow appears very bigger. When the light source is away from the object, the shadow appears very smaller. The shadow got smaller when we move the torch away from the car and screen towards the car. How does the size of a shadow depend on the distance between the object, the light source, and the screen? Just now you had seen when we increase the object screen distance, the shadow becomes bigger. We can increase this distance by moving the screen and the objects away from each other. When we increase the object light source distance, the shadow becomes smaller. As the source moves closer, the shadow appears very big. As the source moves away from the shadows grow smaller. This you understood by observing the activity what we have did. Will you always be able to guess the object from its shadow? Will you always be able to guess the object from its shadow? Why? We can only know the outline of a shadow. We can't find the exact color of that object and exact size of the object. We never take the correct result from a shadow. The shape of the shadow may look different from the original object. I can create shapes of different animals by placing my hands in different ways in front of a light source. This you know very well. You can play with your fingers by keeping in the way of light and forming the shadows of different animals on walls. We can predict the shape of the shadow of objects but cannot always guess the object by looking at the shadow. So we don't know the exact size of the shadow, size of the object by looking at its shadows, right? So now you try to answer the questions which are given in the worksheet. Before completing, you go through the textbook 4.4 nicely. You read from the textbook and then you answer the workbook and the practice questions. See here in 14.4, first question. Measure the distances in the two cases using your ruler and fill in the boxes. So first picture is screen away from the screen. The toy or the object is away from the screen and near to the light source, just middle. It is not exactly near to the light or not exactly near to the screen. And in second picture also the object is away from the screen and very close to the light. So by observing this case 1 and case 2, you have to fill the boxes now. So what they are asking here, distance between the object and the screen dash centimeters. So you need to take your scale and object and the screen. This distance, the distance between the object and the screen, measure with your scale and write here. And the second one, distance between the object and the light source. These two distances you measure and write here. And in case 2 also, the distance between the object and the screen. Same way how you did it, same way here also. And the distance between the object and the light source. So this you measure and write in the given spaces. In which case will the shadow be bigger? In second case, the shadow is bigger because it is away from the screen and also near to the light. Yes? So in second case, the shadow is bigger. In case 2, the shadow is bigger. The shadow is bigger in case 2. Why? Because it is near to the light source and also away from the screen. How can you make the shadow smaller? When you bring this object, when we bring the object near to screen, when you bring the object, a small shadow is formed. Yes? Now look at the shadows. Can these be of the same person? Give reasons for your answer. Look at the two shadows. Can these be of the same person? Give reasons for your answer. Might be the same person, but the light source falling of light is different in both the shadows. In first shadow, maybe the light source is very close to the object. That's why the shadow is long. In first shadow, the light source is near, very near. That's why shadow is big. In second shadow, light source is light source is far from him, so the shadow is smaller. So the shadow is smaller. Okay. So any more differences if you find between these two shadows, you can write here. Okay. So this is about page number 40. And now, before moving on to the practice questions, nicely you read the content book about shadows, which is given in your content book. Read each and every point of it and then come to the practice questions. So the first one, when the object screen and the object light source distances are 5 centimeters and 7 centimeters. The object and the screen, between the object to screen 5 centimeters, and between the object and the light 7 centimeters. So it is very near to the screen. So when the object is near to the screen, the shadow will be smaller. The shadow is of the same size. So what is asking you to find out? The shadow is of the same size as that of the object. If the object screen distance become 10 centimeters, the shadow will be, so it is moving away from the screen. That means near to the light. That means it forms a bigger shadow. If the object like light source distance is 3 centimeters, the shadow will be bigger obviously. Between the light source and the object, the distance is less, so definitely a big shadow is formed. Now draw a setup to form the shadow of a ball on a wall when the light source is A and the light source is, okay, this you see from your content book, and then draw the asked setup in your notebook. Measure the object screen and the object light source distance in your drawing. So you draw a light source, a ball, and the screen, and measure the distances between the object and the screen and between the light source and the ball. Can you use both your hands to make shadows of two different shapes? Explain why or why not. Yes, we can use our hands to make shadows of two different shapes. By using our fingers, when we keep our fingers in the way of light, then definitely the shadows are formed. So by this, we can make the different shadows by using our hands and our fingers. Understood, children? So nicely read 14.4 from your textbook and answer these questions from page number 40 from your workbook and also from your content book. Thank you.